Welcome to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show where we discuss all things political, bringing you the top stories locally, nationally, and from around the world. I'm Ruben Abati, and This Day Live begins now. I'm Ruben Abati, your host for This Day Live, the Sunday talk show. I'd like to welcome our special guest for today. Of course, ladies first. We have Yemi Adamolekun, the Executive Director of Enough is Enough. She's here to join the conversation today. Joining us also is our resident guest, Deputy Editor at This Day on Sunday, Olawale Olaleye.
Good evening, sir.
Also with us is the Director General, Polytech Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies, Professor Bola Akinterewa.
It's a pleasure to be here.
All that and more, stay tuned. Welcome to all of you, and thank you for joining us. We have quite a bit to talk about today, so let's get right into it with the top stories of the week. Wale, you usually give us a rundown. What's been happening?
Good evening, everyone. It's been an interesting week, especially that the week climaxed with the National Convention, elective convention of the PDP. And to the shock of a few, not many, quite surprisingly, Prince Uche Secondus emerged from South, in Rivers State. In the course of the week, there was this campaign, NSAS protest, that took over the airways, and then interestingly, the Inspector General of Police waded in and asked that that detachment be reorganized, and I think that was taken care of as it were. Of course, one major international event that's still very hot now as we speak is the pronouncement by President Donald Trump of the United States, recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. And then I learned that this morning, about 4 major protests had, broken out in different parts of East Jerusalem and Gaza Strip. Former Yemen President Ali Saleh was assassinated in the week. Police, interestingly, I'm not sure it was deliberate, it sort of overruled the federal government following alleged threats by the Boko Haram during the Utah period. The federal government had said there was no such thing. The police came out to say that there were threats, actually. President Buhari, Senate President Bukola Saraki, and then the Speaker, the guy met in the week over the budget to see how they could fast-track things. Lieutenant General Tiwa Danjuma turned 8th in the week. We would like to toast to good health and long life. Congratulations to him. Senator Ayarishe in the week was kidnapped, released, and of course, Kogi PDP chairman too was kidnapped.
Well, it seems that we're having a lot of kidnappings
going on around the world.
As the political season is warming up.
Herdsmen invaded a community in Kogi and killed, quite a few. PDP suspended Senator Kashemu. ANEC has announced dates for the 2019 elections. We have the Presidential National Assembly in February, and then in March we have the governorship and state assembly elections. The president was in Kaduna in the week.
That's in 2019.
2019, yes. The president was in Kano in the week, and then that's he sort of sent some kind of subliminal message to the opposition that with the crowd that welcomed him, then the message should be clear. Maybe, maybe not. Justice Ademola reportedly resigned in the week, but NGC said they retired him. So that controversy, is still out there. There was a bit of fuel, crisis in the week, but I think the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Dr. Kachiku, stepped in, and we may be having some kind of reprieve now, for now. Oanise is kind of trying to push harder for a stronger negotiation in 2019, saying whoever has the interest of the Igbo.
Well, I see it's a
very long list, actually.
So much happened during the week.
Around the world.
We'll come back to some of those issues.
Okay.
Let's start today's program on a happy note. There's been so much talk about happiness in Nigeria.
I know
the pursuit of happiness just became one step easier, particularly in Imo State, in the southeastern part of Nigeria. Thanks to their governor, they now have a dedicated official to oversee their happiness and what is called purpose fulfillment. Governor Okorochas Okorocha named the official, who just happens to be his sister, during a swearing ceremony on Monday. Mrs. Ogechi Ololo was initially named Commissioner of Happiness and Couples Fulfillment, much to the delight of social media users who wondered exactly what the function of this new role will be. A day later, the governor's office issued a correction to say that the correct title will be Supervisory Commissioner for Happiness and Purpose Fulfillment. Full details on what she will do in the role are yet to emerge, but another aide to the governor issued a statement that the ministry will guide ministries and departments on what they must do to guarantee the citizens' happiness and contribute better to the society. The appointment itself has been met with ridicule and laughter on social media sites as Nigerians weighed in on what the role actually means and the ethics of the governor appointing his own sister to the role. Okorocha is known, of course, for his grand gestures. Recently, he unveiled a series of statues honoring world leaders, including Africa's first female president, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, and South African President Jacob Zuma. And he also proposed a budget of about 131 billion naira, the equivalent of about $360 million for Imo State, with more than 77% of this budget to be sourced from federal allocations. But maybe taking the time to consider the happiness of our citizens isn't such a bad idea. Other countries, including the United Arab Emirates and Venezuela, have appointed ministers for happiness. Why should Nigeria not also do so? After all, Nigeria has been ranked among the happiest places in the world, despite widespread unrest, political crisis, and recession. Should we not be applauding Governor Okorocha of Imo State for taking a proactive measure to ensure a state of happiness? Or is this just another one of his grand gestures, full of ulterior motives and money that will not be well spent? Panel, what's everyone's take? Let me start with you, Yemi.
Well,
she's happy.
I'm yes. But I think, honestly, Governor Okorocha's sort of take on governance, it's really, for me, been quite baffling over the last 7 years. And the capacity of Imo residents to really endure, if I want to use that word. So all in the last 3 months, as you've said, he's done the statues. Now we have this position in a state that has not paid pensioners for, I believe, 14 months. And not only that, he basically blackmailed them, I'll use that word, quite a strong word, but I will use that word, into signing off their pension by saying that he would pay them, they're signing off, if I'm not mistaken, 40% of it, and that he'll pay them the 60%. And of that he promised to pay, their checks have bounced. So you have pensioners in a state who are unable...
That's an offense.
Well,
of course, yes.
They haven't, yeah. Well,
the law says you can't issue Dutch checks.
Well, let's take it up with the governor.
But the governor has immunity.
There you go. So he's free to do as he wishes.
Dutch checks.
So he gives that to pensioners who have served the state of Imo. They've given the best years of their lives, and now they should be resting. They can't, I mean, and I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but there are numbers of people who have died because they just don't have the resources to take care of themselves. Yet you then appoint your blood sister as a commissioner for happiness. If you actually paid pensioners, I guarantee you they'll be quite happy.
Well, but I mean, this moral point about his sister being appointed, is there anything wrong with that, Wale? After all, even in the United States, you have President Trump appointing his son-in-law, his son,
the same kind
his
of
daughter.
outcry.
I don't have problems with whoever is appointed into what position, for as long as the person is qualified to be there. I mean, merit is what I would support any day, anytime. But I think Yemi has rather situated this debate in the very correct context. But what I disagree with, especially is when people try to draw inferences or some kind of silly comparison with what happens elsewhere. Okorocha is still struggling with rudimentary governance. And then you're talking about, copying those who had advanced in every way possible, in making life much more, better for their people. I think it's an unfortunate situation in Imo State. How they got into this trap, I don't know. But I am just hoping and praying for them that someday they will step out of this unfortunate scenario.
Well, Prof, happiness is not a laughing matter. It's a serious matter. And I'm actually quoting the Minister for Happiness of the United Arab Emirates. And you can Google it. It's there online. Now, but Nigerians are laughing at this thing. Isn't the governor of Imo being innovative? Because something new always comes out of Imo State.
You see, I think Yemi rightly pointed out the critical problem with which the governor is faced. That is, means, if you have not paid pension, why will you be contemplating appointment of a commissioner that will require additional payment? That logic is quite tenable. Wale is also right in the way he's looking at that. But I think that I am likely to pitch my tent with your argument that, look, whenever anyone comes out with new idea, it is the style of the Nigerian to make a jest of it. They ridicule it, all right? They laugh. But at the end of the day, the bitter truth as revealed in international diplomatic practice, in global governance, you have to appoint someone so trustworthy, someone who is likely, all right, not to compromise the objective of political governance in your administration.
Or join you in the compromise.
Yes, you see, look, at the end of the day, those who appoint their relations, you will look at it that rather than sending diplomatic notes, not verbal, through diplomatic missions, official channels, you will ask an individual to carry your letter. You brief him. So, no third party will have access to that. Now, this commissioner is charged with the responsibility of supervising, happiness. The issue is that, hold on. You see, under normal circumstances, if all ministries were doing their job as required, they would have created basis for happiness for everybody. But since public servants, who Olusegun Obasanjo described as evil servants, they are not always there to defend.
You have a head of service, you have an executive government.
Even this ministry is going to be contending with civil servants. So what difference does it make?
Why are you justifying yet another role when you already have two public officials being paid who can't function in that supervisory role? That is precisely the point I'm making. We have public servants that are not performing well. So if you want to succeed as a chief executive, you need to
create another avenue.
Well, why not? Sir, his son-in-law is his chief of staff. So what kind of nepotism? I mean, what are you saying? That Imo can't function without Okorochas' family members?
The Minister for Happiness deals with issues of social welfare, attends to family matters and all that. And there have been reports that in Imo State, anytime there is any domestic quarrel between husband and wife, now they have somebody that they can go to. If you are hungry and you are unhappy, now you have a ministry. A state ministry that you can go to.
They should pay their salaries, they won't be hungry. Let them pay their salaries, they won't be hungry. Let them pay the pensioners, they won't be hungry.
No, happiness,
so it has to start somewhere.
Happiness is of a different nature.
Okay, really?
You see, when we talk about happiness, it can be induced by a momentous occasion, gift, salary, as you are talking about. Natural happiness in terms of fulfillment, satisfaction.
What I take from all of this is that there seems to be a consensus that what the people need is not additional bureaucracy, a good governance.
Absolutely.
With the existing structures. And for the state to serve the purpose of ensuring the security and
and
welfare
manage their
of the
resources
people.
efficiently.
QED.
Exactly.
Nigerians being very interested.
Commissioner for Happiness is part of good governance.
No, it is not. It's an extra monetary line they do not
Nigerians
need. Prof.
being very
They
interesting
don't need
people
that.
have even made additional suggestions to the governor of Imo State. But I don't want to. I don't want to mention that on television. I don't want to. You know. Okay. I won't mention that. Well, let's go to the PDP convention. The main opposition party, the People's Democratic Party (PDP), now has 21 new national officers that will pilot its affairs in the next 4 years. These officers emerge at the just concluded National Elective Convention of the party in Abuja. The new officers of the National Working Committee will lead the party to the 2019 general election, which is exactly 432 days away, and is also in charge of the day-to-day running of the party. Another result of the convention is Prince Uche Secondus, who has emerged as the new chairman of the PDP. Mr. Secondus defeated 3 other contestants to emerge victorious in a keenly contested election held at the Eagle Square in Abuja yesterday. The chairman of the Electoral Committee of the convention and former governor of Benue State, Gabriel Suswam, announced the results, stating that Mr. Secondus scored a total of 2,000 votes out of the total number of 2,296 votes cast. Mr. Secondus was followed by the former Minister of Education, Tunde Adeniro, who scored a total vote of 230 votes, while the duo of Raymond Dokwesi and Taoid Adedoja scored 66 votes, and for Adedoja, 0. The results, however, have left some of the candidates in uproar, with airs of voting rigging potentially having taken place. What do we think of Mr. Secondus as the new chairman of the PDP? What do we think of the process? Was there rigging, as has been alleged? I really find it quite hard to believe that Mr. Secondus got almost 90% of the votes. What do you think? Is there fair play or foul play? And of course, some of the other contestants who withdrew from the race have alleged rigging. They've condemned the process. They've rejected the results. Is the PDP learning past lessons, present lessons, or is the PDP shooting itself in the foot? Wale.
All of us are looking at
You are the political reporter.
Well, starting with Secondus, I would think it is early in the day to judge a book by its cover. He's acted briefly before, shortly after Adamu Mwazu left, and then I'm not sure he did badly. And now he's calling the shot, as substantive chairman. I think it's only fair that we give him a chance and see how far he will be able to lead the party, although he's leading the party at a very crucial and sensitive period. As far as the process was concerned, there was nothing out of place or that we haven't seen in other conventions, or as far as the PDP was concerned. Some persons came together, some power blocks, so to speak, came together, came up with what they called unity list, and then, rallied the others to say, these are, harmonized lists to say, these are our own people. And I think it was just part of what we call horse trading that paved the way for Secondus to emerge. So by and large, it wasn't a bad process. Of course, some people had kind of disputed the number of accredited delegates and the total number of votes, including the voided ones and all that. But I think
the final tally exceeded the total number of delegates.
Yes, but by and large, that is one leg of the process to a rebirth of the PDP. The other one would be how to elect its presidential candidates, which of course will ultimately tell whether or not PDP is ready for 2019. But importantly, I think what you're taking away from the convention is that, like we had in 2015, somebody from Rivers State, a sitting governor, has also emerged to lead the process. Watch out for Wike, like Amici did. Amici was the point man in 2015.
We're talking about
on
Wike.
the other side.
Look, there have been allegations of cash inducement, lack of transparency. Is the PDP more united or divided the morning after the convention?
I mean, I'll probably say it seems they are more united. Because, I mean, all the governors came together and said, this is the list, these are the people that we want. And yes, there was some pushback, people saying it wasn't a fair process. But in terms of, I mean, as Olawale laid it out, in terms of the sort of power blocks, they control quite a significant block within the party to dictate, in a sense, what happens. But I think for me, it's also clear the lessons for our general elections. So if in a party convention of 2,000 plus delegates, you have that level of money inducement in getting people to vote, I mean, didn't hear about any campaigning or any, I mean, you saw the ones that campaigned. I mean, Professor Adeniran was quite vocal in interviews, doing interviews, and so you had a few others who were really making their case for why they should be PDP chairman. I won't say that for Mr. Secondus, but if we have money at that level, at 2,000 delegates something, now talk about a general election, how much more money will play a role?
There's an ethnic dimension to the PDP convention. Before the voting began, one of the candidates from the Southwest, Chief Olabode George, he issued a statement saying that the micro-zoning principle on the basis of which that convention was meant to be held and the zoning of the chairmanship to the Southwest have been violated. Okay, and he said, as a leading Yoruba person, he will not allow himself to be part of a process that would be to the disadvantage of Yorubas. He also alleged that Governor Wike of Rivers State, whose name has been cropping up, you know, and attached to whatever irregularities may have occurred, had gone on television to say that Yoruba people from the Southwest have not contributed anything to the party. What's your take on this, on zoning and this ethnicization of the PDP convention?
Yeah, you see, there are three issues in one. First of all, my opinion on the election is that there is a scientific fraud in it. And whatever, or whichever way we want to look at it, I do not think that we can rightly argue that the PDP is more united. When we use the word more, qualify united, it assumes that there is unity already. Then the issue, the question, which Yemi responded to is the unity more than before? All right. So that in itself is very controversial. The parameters, okay, the dynamics of that unity we need to establish. Now the second issue there, why I argue that there is a scientific fraud is that the voting style introduced is what we call the list voting in political science. The voting is not for individuals, whereby you vote for Yemi, I vote for Wale. The issue now is that you come up with a list. Now, on the list, you precise who is the chairman, who is the secretary, who is the financial secretary. Now, your own preferential candidate, you know, the candidature of, say, Sogondos or Adenira or Dokwesi, now necessarily comes into competition with other names there. So whether you like all the candidates on the list or not, you are voting for the list. Now the issue is that Dokwesi argued...
It wasn't as if that list was officially adopted.
Exactly.
It wasn't an officially adopted
It was just an understanding.
Yeah.
It was just an understanding.
Yes.
Look, understand.
And you may be lucky all your candidates are on the list.
No.
You can pick and choose as well.
Dokwesi argued that his name was not on the list.
As chairman, yes.
It was not part of the unity list. So his own people, his own delegates could still go ahead and
in a process.
They voted for the list.
No, let me rephrase it. In a process that's supposed to be open and transparent.
Precisely.
Should there have been a list
No.
imposed on the people?
No.
No, it wasn't imposed.
And orchestrated?
No, it wasn't imposed.
No, if you read the details, what was said was that every name on that list was the first name during the voting. And it was as if the people had been programmed to just choose those people. There was no need for that convention in the first place. If That
If
was
that
the
was the
process.
procedure.
Why didn't the convention just ratify that list?
The list is not the problem.
And
The problem
PDP,
is the motivation. It's the money.
And the people, exactly.
They have been paid to do that.
They've agreed in collective. Hold on. If it is true that
they've been paid to vote those names, that's all.
Hold on. We were not giving money. We were not there. So if the rumors are actually true,
We are following the reports.
exactly,
We
that
are
the
following the
delegates,
reports.
the delegates were induced financially. It was a trade. I give you X, you give me Y. So I think any sort of discussion around should they have voted, not voted, just went in line with the agreement for what you got.
But in any
Anyway,
case,
the key issue that has been raised is about internal democracy within the PDP.
Exactly.
And the lack of internal democracy
Within our parties.
within our political parties is a major problem and challenge for Nigerian
but you
democracy.
see, the issue raised by Bode George is pertinent, is there. There's no way there wouldn't be ethnic dimension to it. The belief was that, look, the chairmanship will be zoned
Southwest.
to Southwest. And on that basis, he relied. Hold on, I'm coming. Look, let's look at it chronologically. Is there? Okay.
The NWC said it will be zoned to the south. So some people came up in the south, the southeast, southwest, and said, "Okay, let us take it." But others disagreed. So it was not recognized by the national leadership of the party.
We'll keep
It was
watching.
an understanding by a small clique.
We'll keep watching the situation in the PDP and in the other
14
political
months.
parties. It looks like the game is already on.
Oh, most definitely.
The countdown is on
14
towards
months.
2019.
Yeah.
It's time now for a short break here on This Day Live, the Sunday talk show. But do stay tuned. When we return, we'll have the latest on Trump, President Trump of the United States, and his declaration of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, as well as updates from President Buhari's recent trip to Kano. Don't go away.
The best way to predict the future is to create it. There's a special breed of achievers out there that are called tomorrow's people, the highly creative ones who live in the future. They imagine what will be and strive to make it happen. They're bold. They refuse to wait for the future. Tomorrow bends and conforms to their ideas. At Access Bank, we share the same sentiments. We've been able to grow our bank to become a leading player in Nigeria with a strong presence across the continent, adopting best practice in everything we do. Our mantra for success is simple: speed, service, and security. Those who shape tomorrow, strive for, and demand perfection. At Access Bank, our service culture of speedy response and drive for excellence is the blueprint for creating customer experiences that will echo for generations. Come, let's work together and take tomorrow.
Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. President Donald Trump, has shown in his short time as President of the United States that he will take any opportunity to go against what his predecessors have done, regardless of whether it might improve the situation or not. His unilateral decisions on healthcare, taxation, immigration, and now the Middle East have been taken without informed advice or any understanding of the likely consequences. To say, as Trump does, that recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel is furthering the peace process is as diverse from popular thinking as saying that pouring petrol on a smoldering fire will put it out. Fortunately, the countries that agree with his action can be counted on the thumb of one small hand. He faces unanimous condemnation from statesmen and politicians who, unlike him, know more about the Middle East than the inside of the gold-plated palaces of Saudi billionaires. President Trump's error on Jerusalem, as has been described, seems to be a disaster for the Arab world and the United States too, some people say. His decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and start the move to relocate the U.S. embassy goes against every UN resolution and the beliefs of every European state as well as the Arab countries, which he has been trying to cultivate in the last 6 months or more. President Trump risked uniting the entire Arab world against the United States. While the decision has no legal effect, it deepens tension, ignites anger, and threatens to plunge the region into more violence and chaos. Panel, what do you think prompted this decision? Is President Trump being strategic about something we just can't see yet? Or is this just another poorly thought out move? Prof, you wrote a whole column, a whole page on this subject in This Day today.
Tearing it down.
Yes, you see, we need to understand the strategic calculations of Donald Trump. His foreign policy, the conduct and management of United States foreign policy under Donald Trump is creating, problems, all right, as a means of getting relevant internationally.
Really?
Yes.
The President of the United States needs to hustle for relevance?
I will explain. You see, the United States has become an agent provocateur in international relations.
That's it.
You promote destabilization everywhere in order to get focused attention. That is, the declared foreign policy of the United States under Donald Trump is that we will make America great again. Now, you want to make America great by troubleshooting.
By creating trouble.
By creating problems.
But internationally, isn't America already a superior power?
Hold on. It's not sufficient to say it's a superior power. You see, the issue is that let an ant run into the nostril of an elephant. Then you now know that as big as the elephant is, the elephant will have a very serious problem. All right. A small fly, let it fly into the nose something. The factor being considered is that America is big and very powerful, but you have small powers that are more of irritants. All right. Now to come to the issue, to the question, what is responsible? The issue is that if you go back to the 1930s, the war in Manchuria in 1931 being the foundation, you will discover that Roosevelt, Delano, succeeded by Truman, they were faced with guerrilla warfare between the Arabs and the Israelis. Why? Because as agreed to, Weizmann in 1917 pleaded with the British to find a homeland for the Palestinians and for the Israelis. Now, what happened was that in the 1930s, the British, for I wouldn't know, but at least reasons of duplicity, now they were now trying to give favor to the Israelis more than the Palestinians. The Palestinians now, the Arabs now thought that, look, why? They kicked against that. The extent was that by 1946, 1947, when the guerrilla warfare was becoming a source of major problem for the British now asked the United Nations that had just been put in place to revoke its mandate on Palestine. You know, in 1922, Britain was given the mandate over Palestine. Now, the request that there should be homeland for the Palestinians and the Israelis meant partitioning Palestine into two. So, the request by the British was acceded to by United Nations. They revoked the mandate given to the British, and then they partitioned the land into two. The Arabs refused to take the land. In fact, they even said they will push the Israelis to the sea.
Can we focus a bit more on the status of Jerusalem?
No.
The status of Jerusalem is as a result of that. Because when the Arabs refused to accept the partitioning, there was war in 1948. And then the Israelis were able to capture, they defeated them with the assistance of the United States. With the defeat, they occupied the western part of Jerusalem to date.
But you know, the U.S. Congress passed the Jerusalem Act.
Yes, 1995.
Yeah, recognizing you know, Jerusalem as
overwhelmingly.
capital.
It was overwhelmingly
No
voted for.
American president since then, you know, has taken this step.
Yes,
They've
they
all been
promised.
postponing it.
Yes.
They've
They
all
all
been
promised.
in order to avoid the escalation of tension in that region. Yeah, is this a wise move by President Trump? Is it wise?
Certainly not. Certainly not. That's why I said Donald Trump has been troubleshooting here and there.
Creating
So, Wale,
troubleshooting. Troubleshooting means you're trying to solve problems.
Yeah, just a point. During the week, the Arab League met, the ministers met, and they condemned what Donald Trump did. There have been protests in parts of the Arab world. Do you think this will lead to war?
I'm not sure it will get to that point. First, I think, like somebody, jokingly said earlier today on CNN, this is one move by President Trump that has united the Arab world, for the first time in a long time. But, I said, behind the studios that I was going to disagree with Prof, a lot on this. You campaign in prose and then govern in poetry has been the norm over the years. And then I personally do not understand why you will come up, on the podium and make promises and not fulfill them. On this, I stand with President Trump. He said he would do it. So walking his talk, I don't think should be a problem.
It's timing as well.
Well, it's not. It doesn't look like it's only the Arab world that has been united, or that the division between Palestinians and. There's also a Christian-Muslim dimension to this. And I'm going to ask Yemi to address this. I mean, Nigerians reacting to this have been quoting the Bible. Christians have been commending President Trump. They say this is the fulfillment of the prophecy.
That's for all
Is it really the fulfillment?
That's for all Israel.
Is it really a fulfillment of the prophecy? Considering that only 2% of the Israeli population is Christian.
The Christian Jews are in trouble.
I'm not a Bible scholar, so I'll pass on the debate on if it's a fulfillment of prophecy or not. But
Well,
I think,
Prof, you just came from church. Maybe you take that. Was it an issue in the church?
No, you see, we should differentiate between old Israel
And Israel.
and the Israel created in 1948.
Yes.
Okay? The land of Palestine has always been there. I think that anybody quoting the Bible
is ignorant.
Yes, it's not looking at modern-day Israel.
The full picture.
Yes, as Israel is quite different from the old Israel, old city of Jerusalem. You see the critical point, if the international community is against, is because of two principles of international law. The first principle is that when you go into war, that is precisely under international humanitarian law, when you capture, when you occupy a territory, it does not confer sovereignty on you. It doesn't give you the right of ownership. It's simply occupation. And then the second principle is that when you are occupying a territory that does not belong to you, because there's another principle called principle of terra nullius. That is, there is no land that does not have a title, that does not belong to somebody.
Yes.
So you cannot populate that land with your own people. All right? So what happened was that following the Six-Day War and the Yom Kippur War of 1973, what happened was that immediately the Israelis won the war. They went to Eastern Jerusalem to occupy.
Prof, I see this is an exciting subject. But we need to move on. But what you have probably not added to those two principles is the principle also of possession. Don't let us go into that.
That's effective occupation.
Yes. You're still watching the Sunday Live, This Day Live, the Sunday talk show. Now with me, Ruben Abachi, here in Lagos. We're going to take a short break now, but do please stay with us. We'll be right back.
Thinking of banking in Africa? Then think Zenith, one of the biggest in Nigeria, with assets over $16 billion, listed among the 20 most influential brands in the world, and winner of Best Bank in Corporate Governance, the most customer-focused bank in Nigeria. A success built on 3 foundations dedicated to people, technology, service. Zenith Bank, in your best interest.
There is nothing as symbolic as a door. It shuts to protect you and opens to give you much more. Everyone wants to succeed, not just count pennies. When life gets tough, I remember a few things. Difficulty and struggles are part of what life brings. Your strength comes from the support around you. A true friend believes in what you do, there to hold your hand through any weather. I found my partner, and we walked through doors together.
Diamond, your bank.
Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. Now, let's talk about President Buhari's visit to Kano. President Buhari arrived in Kano this past Wednesday for a 2-day official visit. Numerous placard-carrying supporters of the president were there to greet him, unofficially starting the electioneering campaign for his re-election in 2019. President Buhari was received at Malam Aminu Kano International Airport by Governor Abdullahi Ganduje, members of the State Executive Council, the Emir of Kano, Muhammadu Sanusi II, traditional rulers, as well as politicians, among others. As part of his visit, the president on Wednesday visited the Kumawa Central Prison in Kano, where he freed 500 prisoners. President Buhari stated, while granting amnesty to the prisoners, that this was part of his general prison decongestion exercise in the country, and to allow those inmates with minor cases who have stayed long in prison to go home. The president inaugurated some projects also during his trip, including the ultramodern specialist hospital, Ginguyu, named after him, and a pediatric hospital. During President Buhari's visit to Kano, the state's All Progressives Congress also endorsed him and Ganduje for second term in office come 2019. In a clear pointer to his popularity in the most populous state in northern Nigeria, and with an eye on contesting the 2019 presidential election, President Muhammadu Buhari is sending, obviously, a clear message to any opposition in the country. With the APC endorsing Buhari for a second term, this visit seems to be the beginning of his 2019 campaign. Indeed, in Kano, some members of the party said if the president did not agree to run, that they would take him to court or something like that. Yeah, is it just the North that is in love with President Buhari, or this is a clear indication that the president himself is making some moves to reassure his followers?
You know, this is the second time that the president is sort of hinting at a likely run. He did first in Bijan when he went for summits on terrorism, and then this is the second time he's doing so. You know, on the social media, there was this debate about the crowd of 2015 and the crowd that welcomed him, you know, in this particular visit. And I would describe this particular crowd as the presidential crowd. That of 2015 was a Buhari crowd. So there was no basis between the two crowds. If it was on the basis of the crowd, then I would think the president has a lot to do if he really wants to run. But he has not come up, you know, pointedly to say he wants to run.
Well, he did say that if elections
was just
happen.
hinting at running. But I think, from all indications, he's still the man to beat, honestly. And I wish him luck.
Well, I mean, Prof, what do you think? I mean, I know the campaigns more or less have started without INEC already saying, you know, let's start the campaigns. But what is the significance of the trip to Kano? Because that was the first time the president will be visiting Kano since his election. And I understand that there have been some complaints about, you know, the president not visiting because the people of Kano thought they delivered and they made him president. Two strategic states in Nigerian politics, Kano and Lagos, where you have most of the votes.
I think you are quite correct. You see, the issue is that we are told that charity begins at home, but not always. I don't believe that it must always begin at home. If charity you do not have and cannot begin at home, then you should be taught outside. I think what Buhari has simply done in this case is not simply to respond to the complaints that he had not found time to come to or to go to Kano. But the issue now is that he's giving the impression that if the environmental conditionings in 2019 will favor him, he wouldn't mind being considered. But for us to now think that already he's preparing, well, we need to pray for him as well, that God gives him longevity of life, good health, etc., all along. You see, for me, as of today, regardless of what statements his supporters may be making, the situational reality of 2019 shall determine, not by what you are doing as at now.
It's not cumulative, you don't think? You're saying it's not cumulative? Like what you're doing now up to 2019?
No, you see, there are different complaints.
In politics,
They are on the increase, all right? Day after day, we are fed with information giving or tainting his record as a correct person. Minor gate, all right? I don't know how, like in Shakespearean Macbeth, how he's going to cleanse himself with water or with soap, with all these complaints. And at the end of the day, you now look at it that the critical issues in political governance of Nigeria, like the issue of restructuring, all right, all these are not in his favor.
Yes. Okay.
So, and the mounting pressure, as it is such that he needs to represent himself the way he did for the 2015 election. Right.
To who, though? I mean, because even if you look at
the electorate.
Which electorate?
The people in Kano, in Lagos, are not the only people.
No, but all I'm trying to say is, I mean, to Mr. Abati's point, 2 states where you get a lot of your votes.
Yes.
What the people in Kano would be looking for, asking questions about?
Will Kano and Lagos give more than 50%?
I don't think Lagos did so well.
But that's the point. So I'm just saying
Lagos
that
didn't
also,
do so well.
Exactly. So what I'm even saying is that all these things that we're
PDP
talking about...
competed keenly in Lagos.
All these things that we're talking
No,
about depends on your audience as well.
The assumption that is not acceptable in your argument is this. Because he secured maximum votes, quote and unquote, in Lagos and Kano in 2015, therefore in 2019, he will also...
No, it's not automatic.
Because the population...
That's not what we're saying. It's not automatic.
We're just talking about the population, that's all.
Governor, the president was well received.
Absolutely, yes.
In Kano. But you see, there's
That is
also something
politics.
about local politics.
Okay.
That is politics.
You know that Kano State is also the base of the former governor.
Yes, and it's divided already.
It looks like there was some kind of political war.
Yes.
You
There
know,
has been.
Serious one.
Well, maybe you will comment a little on that.
It's unfortunate that shortly after the elections, Konkoso and Ganduje fell out. How that was, I couldn't even comprehend yet, because they've been together for almost 14 years. They've been together in these days as ministers, as governor for HS, back and forth. So how they fell out so quickly?
So Ganduje was his deputy?
Yes.
Exactly. No, just so that we're clear.
so how they fell out so quickly, I cannot understand. But you cannot wish away the influence of the Kwankwasia movement in Kano is so strong that for you to think you can push him away, and you will try harder. So I don't know how they are going to do that. And one would have thought that, like somebody said, one would have thought that the president would have gone to Kano with Kwankwaso with him.
Who is a 6'7" senator.
That way you would have made some moves, with a view to reconciling both of them. Yeah. But now he went alone. Kwankwaso didn't go. Who knows?
Meaning that your argument of population.
Of course, yeah.
What we are
Anyway,
saying,
there will be more of these issues as Nigerians prepare for the 2019 election.
14 months
and it's not just Kano State where you have all these issues. You also have issues in other parts of the country.
man to beat, I'm not deceived.
Now, in the
but
past
we don't have any others.
In the past, there have been issues about the special anti-robbery squad following the extrajudicial killing of a young man in Lagos. Nigerian Twitter just went into outrage with Nigerians calling for the abandonment, or what word should I use? Yeah, the campaign was titled End SARS. Yeah. They wanted that unit of the Nigerian police to be scrapped. Yeah. And the Inspector General of Police eventually came forward to say that, look, SARS will be reorganized. And the people said, no, we're not asking for reorganization. We are not asking for reform. That, reports of extrajudicial killing by the Special Anti-Robbery Squad is an assault on the right of the average Nigerian to dignity. However, the police also said, first, that the people asking for the scrapping of that anti-robbery squad are armed robbers. Later they came around and also said that, look, if we scrap the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, then there will be a rise in the crime rate in the country. But clearly, there seems to be an issue with extrajudicial killing in Nigeria, particularly by our men in uniform. You run enough is enough. So Nigerians in the past week have been saying enough is enough.
No, but I think it's very disappointing, very disheartening that the Nigerian police continues to take very lightly the concerns of Nigerian citizens about their men. You say the police is your friend, but that's really an exception in the Nigerian context, not the rule. And so if I use reaction to the IG of police statement that SARS will be reorganized, people say it's the same IG of police that has ordered the scrapping of police checkpoints, but nothing has happened. So the point is there is no basis to take his word for it, that because I have decreed something and ordered something, that's what would happen. And the most recent example that happened last week, after this whole End SARS campaign, a young gentleman, Mr. Mutoni, who works for Budget, one of EIE's partners, was in Niger State, and part of their program was to educate citizens on the National Assembly and their budget allocations for constituency projects. So the young man did that in a particular senatorial district, left Niger, went to Kaduna, and was arrested in Kaduna. And when he was arrested, he was told that he was taken to the SARS office. When he got there, he saw SARS paraphernalia. But we were then told that it's an office that's used by different units of the police, so it's possible that SARS was there, but he was not arrested by SARS. Another step further, the police now said that, oh, he was not arrested, but we've released him on bail. Now, do you release someone on bail that you did not arrest? Thirdly, we're thinking, it's very strong that it's a senator that was involved. And so that whole dialogue or narrative around members of the National Assembly taking it as a personal offense for them to be challenged, and people ask, like, look, this is what was budgeted. Where are the things budgeted? What have you done with them? The parallels were three possible examples. This was a young man who worked for a known organization who was carrying an ID card, and you knew what he was doing. You had him arrested because you did not like what he was doing. What if he was a freelance journalist that had no ID, really, and was doing an investigative piece? If he was arrested, we might never know. Thirdly, what if he was just a citizen who was just asking questions? And it is our right as citizens to ask questions about where our money is going. And if the citizen was picked up, tying back to your comment about extrajudicial killing, where do you even begin to look? Where do you even begin to look for the citizen, and who shouts? Where do you know that the citizen was taken?
There have even been reports by certain persons on Twitter that they were brutalized by,
definitely.
by policemen for carrying more than 2 phones.
It's another thing, especially with young men.
If you are caught with a laptop, 2, 3 phones or laptop, you will be labeled a criminal.
That's it. So that's another thing. That using the power that the uniform gives them to just intimidate and criminalize. So because you have a laptop, they'll be asking you for the original receipt of a laptop. Who carries that around? I was at the Wole Soyinka Center for Investigative Journalism's awards last night, and that formed a big part of some of the stories that they were giving awards to, of just following up on stories of people disappearing in police custody. It is a major issue, and I'm sorry, the Nigerian police has not in any way
what's the way forward, Wale? Is it reforming the police, reorganizing the police, or scrapping the Special Anti-Robbery Squad?
I think it would be to absolutely scrap them outright. But I choose reorganization, total, reforming of the police force. That's what I support. And I actually did something on that in today's This Day. Reforming. You can't throw away the baby with the bathwater.
No, but the thing is,
reform solve the problem. It's a very popular phrase in Nigeria. Reform this, reform that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you need political will.
Whether you reform,
scrap.
Whether you scrap, will that one affect the attitudinal disposition of the individual?
The police, you mean?
The police. You see, the problem in Nigeria, let's not look at the more criminally one. How does the Nigerian behave vis-a-vis the police? And how does the police respond? We need to look at this. I think that for the extra killing, let there be the required punishment or investigation. If the guy involved
Who will investigate the police?
The police. Well, you can have an independent something. Yes. In this case, let him be punished severely and let it serve as a deterrent.
Well, incidentally, there is a bill before the National Assembly on mob action, lynching, and extrajudicial killing. It's gone past the second reading.
Yes.
The third reading is scheduled for January. And hopefully, you know, with that law in place, maybe the problem
Our problem
will,
has never been lack of laws. We just don't follow them.
You are very correct.
Enforcement.
Very, very correct. You see, look, well, we say Nigerians laugh. Please. You see, we like setting aside the critical problem to be dealing with symptoms. All right. Please go to the streets, anywhere. Motorcyclists are driving against traffic. All right? These Lagos State buses, BRT, all these commercial vehicles are also driving in the presence of the traffic officers.
traffic wardens.
Traffic wardens making way for them.
Precisely.
In some cases.
So at the end of the day, we condone this, we keep quiet.
So those who are supposed to enforce the law
They are not.
are the ones breaking the law.
They're just looking away. They're not breaking it, just looking away.
There's even a book on that subject, how government breaks the law. And when government breaks the law, you know. You've been watching.
Required reading for this week.
Well, we got to go. We've been watching This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati. From our panel here in Lagos, it's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching.
There is a reason Africa is called the new frontier. What was once potential is now an opportunity ready to be seized. Once revered for our resources, today's wealth lies in our people. People who build the cities that shape the future. People who know an idea in one place means business in another. A generation for whom technology means there are no borders, no boundaries. We are the new lions in a brave new world, kings of the urban jungle. And there's a bank that puts the world in our pocket and the future in our hands. UBA, Africa's global bank.